There's a moment in coaching that most people don't even notice when it happens. It doesn't come with a title change, certification. It doesn't even come with a clear signal. It just shows up. Usually in the middle of something routine, a normal session, a normal day, nothing unusual. And then something shifts. An athlete looks at you, not for instruction, but for direction. Not just for a cue, but for a decision. And in that moment, whether you say it out loud or not, you realize this isn't just about running sessions anymore. Early on, coaching feels light. You're excited, you're engaged, you're focused on what you know: programming, exercises, sets, reps, getting people better. And that's a good place to start because in the beginning, the stakes feel manageable. If something goes well, you feel good about it. If something doesn't, you adjust. It feels like a system you can control. Input, output. Do the right things, get the right results. But that version of coaching, it doesn't last because eventually you run into something that doesn't fit cleanly into that system. An athlete doesn't respond the way you expected. Progress stalls without a clear reason. Fatigue shows up where it shouldn't, and a decision you made doesn't land the way you thought it would. And now it's not just a technical problem, it's a human problem. This is where coaching starts to change. Not when you learn more, but when you realize there are things you can't fully control. You can write the best program you know how to write. You can structure sessions carefully. You can pay attention to detail. And still, something can go wrong. That's the moment the weight shows up. Not physical weight, responsibility. Coaching gets heavy the moment someone else outcome depends on you. And once you feel that, you don't really go back because now you're not just thinking about what should work. You're thinking about what might not. You start to see the second layer. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm missing something? What if this decision carries further than I expect? Those questions don't leave when the session ends. They follow you home. You replay conversations, you rethink sessions, you revisit decisions that felt simple at the time, not obsessively, but consistently, because something has shifted in how you see your role. You're not just delivering training anymore, you're responsible for how it lands. And that responsibility is quiet. No one hands it to you formally, no one outlines it, but you feel it. In small moments, an athlete asking, "What should I do here, coach?" A head coach looking to you for an answer. A situation where there isn't a clear right choice, but you still have to make one. That's where coaching starts to separate from everything that comes before it. Because knowledge alone isn't enough there. You can't pull from a textbook. You can't just apply a system. You have to decide. And decision making is where responsibility lives. There's a tendency, especially early on, to think that coaching gets easier as you learn more experience, more tools, more confidence. And in some ways, it does. You get better at seeing patterns, you get better at organizing sessions, you get more efficient. But the weight doesn't get lighter, it gets clearer. You start to understand what's actually at stake, not just performance, people, their time, their effort, their trust. What's the part that makes coaching different? Different from just knowing things. Because once someone trusts your decisions, those decisions matter in a different way. You can't hide behind theory anymore. You can't say, well, this should work. You have to stand behind what you choose. Even when you're not completely sure, even when the situation is messy, even when there are multiple directions you could go, especially then. That's where a lot of coaches start to feel tension. Because, on one hand, you want to be confident, you want to lead clearly, you want to give direction. But on the other hand, you're aware of how many variables you don't control. You're aware of how complex the situation actually is. And balancing those two things, certainty and uncertainty, that's the work. And that's the work no one really prepares you for. You learn how to write programs, you learn how to coach movements, you learn how to run sessions. But learning how to carry responsibility, that only happens through experience. Through moments where the outcomes matter more than you expected. Through decisions that stay with you longer than they should. Through realizing that even when you do your job well, you don't control everything. There's a shift that happens when you finally accept that as a coach. You stop trying to control outcomes completely and you start focusing on how to make decisions inside uncertainty. You ask better questions, not what's the perfect program, but instead, you're asking what's the best decision I can make with what I know right now. Instead of asking, how do I guarantee results? You're asking, how do I give this person the best possible chance to succeed? That shift doesn't remove the weight, but it does make it manageable. Because responsibility isn't something you eliminate in coaching, it's something you learn to carry. And how you carry it matters. It shows up in how you communicate and how you adjust and how you respond when things don't go as planned. It shows up in whether you take ownership without taking everything personally. That distinction is important because if you take every outcome personally, you burn out. If you take no ownership, you stop being effective. Somewhere in the middle, there's a way to be responsible without being consumed. And that's what this series is really about. Not how to coach better in a technical sense, but how to understand what coaching actually asks of you, the coach. Because once you feel that weight, once you recognize that responsibility, you start to see the rest of the profession very differently. In the next episode, we're going to talk about the part that most people overlook completely, the weight that doesn't show up in programs or sessions or results, the part you carry with you, even when you're not coaching. Most of the weight of coaching never touches a barbell.